In this video, I would like to discuss how you can approach creating an image slideshow using JavaScript. In this web page, which is from the book example, we see the images changing and we also see the caption changing. Notice they are changing at approximately 1 second. This web page I created, and there are actually 4 different images. Picture of the dog is the same, the numbers vary. So here we see changing images one by one at approximately 1 second duration. In this first images slideshow, if we look at the HTML code, we see that it is on the web page. We have our unordered list, and inside that list, each LI element contains an A. The value of href is the name of the graphic, and we also have a title attribute. Notice at the bottom we have 2 other HTML elements which ultimately will be changed using JavaScript. The first paragraph contains an image with an ID which sets the opening image. The next element is an H2 element with an ID which sets the opening caption. So when the page loads, the catch and release image and caption are being displayed. What we will be doing in JavaScript is we will be retrieving the value of our ahref attribute and we will replace the source attribute of the image ID equals image with that value. We will also be retrieving the value of the title attribute and replace the text of ID equals caption with that value. If we look at our JavaScript code, we are using the $function to return the object reference to the ID, and we are setting up 3 variables. The first variable is the image list, which is the UL element. The second is the caption, where the caption will be displayed, the H2 element, and the third is the image, ID equals image. Remember, our LI elements contain the A's, so here we have getElementsByTagName, which constitutes an array. We store that in the variable called links. We have a few more variables that we're setting up. We have an image cache empty array. We will be using a for loop to populate the link node variable with the indexes of the links array, which was retrieved by the collection of A elements. Next, we will preload our images, and we will also retrieve the href attribute from the link node that was defined inside our array and set that to the source. We will also retrieve the caption values, assign that to the title of the image, and we will also be working with the length of that array. We are not using a loop construct here. However, we are using a counter. So we need to start our image counter at 0. And we need to do this so that we can determine when to restart the slideshow. We are storing the setInterval method in a variable, and the code to be executed will be executed every 2 seconds. This is a very interesting line of code. So here we have image counter, which was originally defined as 0, equals image counter plus 1, which would be 1. This is modulus, image cache.length. Image cache is the number of images, which are 4. So 1 modulus 4 equals 1. So image counter now has a value of 1, which will give us the array index for image cache, which will be assigned to our image variable. Image node is the image on the web page.source equals image.source, which is retrieved from the image cache array. Caption node is the H2 on the web page. Firstchild.node value is image.title, so we're retrieving the title from these preloaded images and the attribute values that we have obtained by looping through these A elements initially. After 2 seconds, function will run again. This time the image counter will be 1 higher, and we will return number 2. based on this statement, and the information for the second image will appear on the web page. It will go 2 more times, and then it will revert back to 0. If I were to add an alert to actually see the value of image counter, I can see that it is working with those 4 images, starting with an index position of 0. The next example is a little different. Remember, these are 4 very similar graphics, varying with the number on them. In this example, everything is being displayed dynamically on the page in this placeholder ID equals images. In the onload section, we are calling the setInterval method the function showImages every 2 seconds. We are creating the image object, storing it in the variable, and we are hard-coding an array with the values of the 4 images. Notice that the image names are 1, whereas the image index value is 0. Now we will preload those images. Again, the alert works well for testing. And we have images.length, which is the length of our array, imageObject.source, which is our image object, and we are preloading those images using the for loop based on the index value. Again, we are working with a counter, and this is the function that will be called with the setInterval method. Inside this function, we have an if and an else. In the if, we have if I equals images.length. So we want to know when we have reached the end of our array. In that case, we will set I back to 0, which is where we initially initialized it. Else, we will continue with the code. The statements inside the if and the else are the same. What we are doing is we are retrieving the index position of the array, which is the file name of an image, and we are setting it as the source of the image object, which is our variable. And all we're doing after that is writing the image statement out to the page. So here we have getElementById images, which is our placeholder. We're using inner HTML because it's easy. And it's interesting, when you write HTML and JavaScript together, you want to be correct with your HTML. So what we are doing is we are coding our image tag using JavaScript, and we are concatenating the source based on our array index position, and we're also concatenating it with an alt attribute. And the alt is going to say photo of dog, but it's going to say photo of dog 1, 2, or 3. So we're concatenating that with an expression. In that expression, we have I, and because our I started at 0 and our graphics started at 1, we will add the number 1 to that. And here we have our I++, similar to a loop, but yet this is not using a loop construct. And we will have some decision making as to when we start over with our first image. How you test JavaScript to make sure that any JavaScript output of HTML is technically correct is with your browser development tools. So if I were to right-click and go to my Inspect tool, which will work in any browser on any platform, if I look at the elements and I look at the generated code, notice there is my image tag. And you can actually see my image tag is changing because JavaScript is changing this code every 2 seconds. You can see the source being changed, that image number, and you can also see the alt being changed, that image number. These other attributes are generated by Adobe Brackets because I'm in live preview. So please disregard them. But what I want to point out to you is this is what JavaScript is doing. And the only way that you can actually see whether or not your HTML is being generated correctly is with your browser tools. If you look at the view source, all you're doing is looking at the source code. You're not seeing anything else, just the raw source code. We can do that with our textbook slideshow example. I can right-click, go to Inspect. Here we see the image being changed, and here we see the caption being changed. Again, we are in Brackets Live Preview, so some additional code is added that is not in the actual source code.